The greatest threat to your marriage isn't infidelity, financial ruin, or fading passion. It is sitting across the table from you right now, passing the gravy and smiling at your newborn child. Look around the dining room. The clinking glasses. The polite laughter. The shared memories. It all looks like a portrait of generational harmony. But beneath the surface of this perfectly curated family gathering lies a psychological war zone. A battlefield where the casualties are quiet resentments, suppressed anxiety, and slowly eroding marriages. Almost 60% of all married couples cite in-law friction as a leading cause of long-term marital distress. 60%. It is an epidemic of tension hidden behind forced smiles and polite holiday visits. And the most dangerous part? You rarely see the troops massing on the border until it is already too late. For a while, you thought you were safe. When it was just the two of you, the boundaries seemed clear. You were independent adults. The obligatory weekend visits were manageable. The unasked for advice was easily brushed off with a polite nod and an eye roll in the car ride home. You tolerated the subtle critiques of your career choices or the way you loaded the dishwasher because the stakes were low. Then, everything changed. The arrival of your first child did not just expand your family. It shattered the existing political map of your entire bloodline. A newborn is a catalyst for an immediate, profound, and often violent shift in power dynamics. Overnight, the fragile peace treaty you held with your in-laws dissolves. The older generation, unconsciously terrified of their own fading relevance, sees an opportunity to assert an outdated authority. They do not just see a grandchild. They see a second chance at parenthood. A do-over. A blank slate where they can imprint their legacy, correct their past mistakes, and most importantly, reclaim the throne at the head of the family table. Suddenly, the advice is no longer a gentle suggestion. It is a command. The unannounced drop-ins are no longer friendly visits. They are inspections. Every parenting decision you make, from sleep schedules to feeding methods, is subjected to a relentless, invisible audit. You are no longer treated as sovereign adults raising your own child. You are treated as middle management, reporting to a board of directors who refuse to retire. The tension begins to rot your marriage from the inside out. It starts with the hushed, furious whispers in the kitchen while your in-laws are in the living room. It bleeds into the sleepless nights, where instead of bonding over your new baby, you are arguing about whose mother overstepped this time. You are exhausted, sleep-deprived, and suddenly fighting a two-front war, one against the demands of a newborn, and the other against the relentless encroachment of your own extended family. And they do not come armed with open hostility. They come armed with gifts. They bring hand-me-down heirlooms, unsolicited baby gear, and offers to help that feel suspiciously like ultimatums. They wrap their intrusion in the suffocating warmth of just wanting the best for the baby. It is a masterclass in psychological warfare. Because how do you fight an enemy who claims they are only trying to love you? How do you defend your territory when the invading army is holding a silver spoon and a college fund? We are conditioned to believe that family support is a blessing. But what happens when the very people offering to secure your child's future are secretly purchasing the rights to dismantle your marriage? The deadliest traps are rarely made of steel and wire. They are made of paper. The heavy, cream-colored stock of a checkbook. The glossy brochure of an exclusive preschool. The shiny metal of a spare house key. When you are a new parent, drowning in the sudden, staggering expenses of keeping a tiny human alive, a financial lifeline feels like a miracle. You are exhausted, stressed about the future, and vulnerable. And right on cue, the older generation steps in. They are established. They are comfortable. And they are generous. They look at your cramped apartment and offer a massive check for the down payment on a house with a proper backyard. They offer to fully fund a $529 college savings plan. They eagerly volunteer for 3 days of free, full-time childcare a week so you can go back to work without sacrificing half your salary to a daycare center. It feels like salvation. It looks exactly like love. But in the boundary wars, there is no such thing as a free lunch. This is the Trojan horse of generational wealth. You will their shiny, generous gift through the gates of your new family, overwhelmed with gratitude. But under the cover of darkness, the soldiers slip out. You quickly discover that the down payment for the house came with invisible ink on the contract, an unspoken requirement that they get unrestricted access, a permanent place at your dinner table, and the right to drop by unannounced on a Sunday morning. That free childcare. It means they will completely ignore your carefully researched sleep schedules, brush off your dietary rules, and undermine your authority. When you gently try to correct them, they smile and remind you that they raised kids just fine, subtly reminding you who holds the cards. Financial leverage is the most potent, insidious weapon in an overbearing in-law's arsenal. It is designed to create a suffocating debt of gratitude. It infantilizes you. In their eyes, as long as you are taking their money, you are still children. And children do not get to dictate the rules. The moment you try to assert a boundary, the moment you ask them to call before coming over, or request they stop criticizing your parenting choices, the trap springs shut. They don't have to yell. They don't even have to get angry. They just have to deploy the weaponized guilt. They look at you with wounded eyes and say, after everything we've done for you. After all the sacrifices we make to help you. It paralyzes you. It forces you and your partner to turn on each other. One of you begs to set a limit. The other panics, terrified of losing the financial safety net. Suddenly, your in-laws are no longer just grandparents. They are majority shareholders in your marriage. They are angel investors in your child's life, and they demand a daily return on their investment in the form of your absolute compliance. The autonomy you desperately need to forge your identity as a new family is quietly being purchased out from under you. Every dollar they spend is a brick in the wall they are building between you and your spouse. You tell yourself you are just accepting a little help to get on your feet. But in this psychological war, how long does it take before you realize you haven't just accepted a gift, you have surrendered the crown? To defeat an adversary, you must first understand their mind. Why would a grandparent willingly sabotage the peace of their own child's home? It is deeply tempting to write them off as simply malicious. To label them as toxic and be done with it. But the truth is far more complex, and deeply rooted in the fragile, aging human ego. When the older generation crosses your threshold, they are fighting a silent, terrifying battle against their own irrelevance. For decades, their primary identity was anchored in being the ultimate authority. They were the decision-makers. The protectors. The unquestioned heads of the table. But as you grew up, moved out, and built your own life, that power steadily waned. The house grew quiet. Their influence shrank. Then, your baby is born. To you, this is the beginning of your family. To them, it is a miraculous, intoxicating opportunity. A return to the center of the universe. They are not just overstepping out of habit, they are fighting for their psychological survival. They are terrified of becoming obsolete. This desperate fear breeds the first tactic in the usurper's playbook, infantilization. To the overbearing in-law, you are not a mature professional capable of keeping a human being alive. You are still the teenager who couldn't remember to take out the trash. They look at you holding your newborn and they do not see a sovereign adult. They see a child playing house. By treating you as incompetent, they validate their own necessity. When they swoop in to save you from a crying infant, or when they loudly second-guess your pediatrician's advice in front of your spouse, they are not helping. They are establishing dominance. They need you to be helpless. Your perceived failure is the oxygen that keeps their authority alive. But the darkest psychological driver is the phenomenon of the narcissistic extension. In a healthy dynamic, grandparents view a new baby as a distinct, separate individual. A new branch on the family tree. But in a toxic boundary war, the baby is viewed as an extension of the grandparents themselves. The child becomes a living, breathing monument to their legacy, a piece of property they hold an absolute right to claim. Watch their language. Watch their physical movements. Notice how quickly they bypass you at the front door. Notice how they physically snatch the crying baby from your arms without asking. Listen to the way they casually, repeatedly refer to the infant as, my baby. It is not a slip of the tongue. They are unconsciously attempting to erase you from the equation. In their psychological framework, you are no longer the parent. You are merely the temporary vessel that delivered their second chance at glory. Once you understand these mechanics, the matrix reveals itself. The unsolicited advice is no longer just a daily annoyance, you recognize it as a desperate grasp for control. The weaponized guilt trips are no longer emotionally devastating, you see them as predictable, pathetic tactics from a fading regime. You are finally armed with the clarity to see the manipulation for exactly what it is. Understanding their motives might give you empathy, but empathy won't save your sanity or your marriage. To survive, you need a weapon. And the most dangerous weapon in this war is a single, seemingly simple concept. The architecture of an ironclad boundary. That single, dangerous concept is a boundary. For most of your life, you have been taught that boundaries are an insult. You have been conditioned to believe that setting a firm limit with your family is an act of aggression, a slap in the face to the people who raised you. But in the context of a new marriage and a new child, a boundary is not a punishment. It is a perimeter wall. It is the architectural foundation of your family's survival. If you do not build it, your marriage will collapse under the weight of external demands. Building an ironclad boundary requires you to abandon the strategy of passive avoidance. You can no longer dodge their phone calls, fake a headache to leave dinner early, or silently fume in the passenger seat on the ride home. Passive avoidance is just a slow retreat. It is time to stand your ground. The first brick in this wall is the united front. Before you speak a single word to your in-laws, you and your partner must forge an unbreakable alliance. You must agree on the rules of engagement behind closed doors. This means adopting the 2 yes, 1 no policy. If an extended family member requests a visit, suggests a vacation, or offers a financial gift, it requires an enthusiastic yes from both of you to proceed. If either partner says no, the answer delivered to the family is a non-negotiable rejection. Once the alliance is forged, you must arm yourselves with the exact vocabulary of defense. You must strip away the apologies, the hedging, and the desperate need to be understood. When you establish a boundary, you do not use the word sorry. Here is your tactical script. To stop unannounced visits. We are establishing a new routine with the baby. We will not be answering the door for unexpected visitors. We will let you know when we are ready to host. To shut down unsolicited parenting advice. We have consulted with our pediatrician, and this is the decision we have made for our child. We are not looking for alternative suggestions. To reject the strings-attached financial gift. We deeply appreciate the generous offer, but we are going to decline. We need to handle this expense on our own. Notice what is missing from those statements. There is no justification. There is no desperate pleading for their approval. In psychological warfare, this is known as dropping the JADE defense. You do not justify, argue, defend, or explain your decisions. When you explain your parenting choices to an overbearing in-law, you are not giving them information to help them understand, you are handing them ammunition. You are inviting them to debate a law that has already been passed. Deliver your boundary with the calm, flat, unbothered tone of a bank teller explaining a corporate policy. You are not asking for their permission. You are informing them of a new reality. You've drawn the line in the sand. You've spoken the exact words to protect your family. But the true test of an ironclad boundary isn't what happens when you set it. The true test is what happens when they inevitably decide to cross it anyway. The Extinction Burst and the New Kingdom. When you finally enforce an ironclad boundary, do not expect a peaceful surrender. Expect an explosion. In behavioral psychology, this violent escalation is known as an extinction burst. When a previously rewarded behavior, like their relentless overstepping and your passive compliance, suddenly stops yielding the desired result, the behavior does not just quietly fade away. It intensifies. They will push back harder than ever before. If you lock the door, they will pound on the glass. The extinction burst is a spectacular theater of emotional manipulation. It begins with the weaponized silent treatment, designed to make you panic and crawl back for their approval. When silence fails, the campaign escalates to martyrdom. There will be tears. There will be dramatic sighs. There will be frantic, agonizing phone calls to aunts, uncles, and siblings, painting you as the cold, ungrateful villains who are maliciously keeping a grandchild away from a loving family. They will pull every emotional fire alarm they have left. You will be accused of cruelty. You will be accused of tearing the family apart. This is the most dangerous moment in the boundary war. This is the breaking point where the vast majority of new parents fold. The pressure becomes suffocating, the guilt is agonizing, and it feels infinitely easier to just open the gates, apologize, and surrender the territory just to make the screaming stop. But you must hold the line. If you surrender during an extinction burst, you do not buy peace. You just teach them exactly how much abuse it takes to break your defenses. You signal that your boundaries are merely suggestions, easily dismantled by a loud enough tantrum. You must let the storm rage outside your walls. You must look at your spouse, link arms, and endure the emotional hurricane together, completely unmoving. Because if you stand firm, something miraculous happens. The storm eventually breaks. The tantrums subside, the gossip dries up, and the manipulation fades. Why? Because you have starved their tactics of oxygen. You have proven that their old weapons are completely useless against your new armor. By refusing to engage in the drama, you force them into a corner. If they want to be part of your child's life, they have only one option left: they must meet you on your terms. They must finally interact with you not as subservient children, but as equal, sovereign adults. When the dust settles, the air in your home fundamentally changes. The suffocating anxiety that used to precede every family visit disappears. The quiet resentments that were poisoning your marriage evaporate. You look across the dinner table at your partner and see a comrade in arms, someone who chose you over the expectations of their past. You have secured your autonomy. You have forged a bulletproof marriage. Your nuclear family is, at last, entirely your own. You fought the boundary war, and you secured your kingdom. But as you watch your own child grow up, safe within the walls you built, a final, chilling question remains: when your time comes, will you know how to step aside?